So I have a question. Why do we have habits? Basically, our lives are filled with hundreds, maybe thousands of decisions, right? If we had to encounter, deal with, decide, and act on every single one of those decisions, we would have no energy left for anything else. Each time one of these becomes one of those, becomes a habit, we can save energy, we can save willpower, we can focus on the question marks that are the difficult creative problems in our lives. The productivity kind of industry, the productivity community, spends a lot of time on why and a heck of a lot of time on what. And what I found is that people already know the what. So habits is focused on the how. So luckily, speaking of evolution, we've evolved a part of our brain called the basal ganglia. It's down at the base of our brain. And the basal ganglia has one main function, which is to scan the environment constantly, devotes tremendous resources to scanning the environment, looking for decisions and behaviors that can be automated. Once the basal ganglia sees a trigger, identifies a trigger, it sets in motion a behavior. And this behavior can be extremely simple all the way to extremely complex. And then there's usually a reward, there's a consequence. And when this process is over, basically, remember that the majority of your brain is not thinking about this thing. It's just your basal ganglia, right? So what happens is the loop completes and your brain kind of shakes itself awake and it asks, how'd it go? What happened? What's the result, right? And if it determines, it sees that the reward was positive, it reinforces the habit loop, like actually neurochemically, it reinforces this loop. So I'm going to ask you now, I'm going to take questions, and then I'm going to ask you to think of up to three examples of habit loops in your life. One muscle is your performance, right? So if you're running, you're actually working physical muscles. If your habit is creative writing, you are exercising the muscle of writing, creativity. But there's another muscle over here, which is the muscle of habit, right? And the muscle of habit gets exercised no matter what you do. If you run 5 miles or put on your shoes, you're communicating to your brain, what? That there's a trigger that you responded to, and when you declare victory and give yourself the reward, you're training your brain, this muscle over here, that when you do that habit, you get rewarded. Cravings, which is another way of saying a desire for a very specific and very intense reward, is one of the most powerful psychological forces there is. This is a quote by Kelly McGonigal, who's well known for her research on willpower. The best way to improve your self-control is to understand how and why you lose control, right? If you can start to understand the factors that lead to you losing control, just that awareness, if you do nothing else, is 80% of the way there. I can assure you, unless you are homeless and penniless, you have the ability not only to create habits, but your whole body and mind is designed for you to create habits. And you've done so hundreds, maybe thousands of times over your lifetime. So I propose a different sentence by a well-known blogger called Leo Babauta, which is make it so easy that you can't say no. So let's say your keystone habit is run 5 miles. If you can't run 5 miles, that's perfectly fine, run 1 mile. If you can't run a mile, walk a mile. If you can't walk a mile, walk around the block, or walk around the building, or walk around the living room. Or, if necessary, put on your shoes, declare victory, and take them off. And I'm 100% serious, okay? Whatever your keystone habit is, reduce the scope, and just keep reducing it to the point of ridiculousness, okay? And your bottom one here, the one you arrive at, the simplest possible version of your habit, should be so simple that it's laughable. When you tell someone, they should laugh out loud. That's how you know that you've arrived at a good point. If you do the easy version, reward yourself, congratulate yourself, genuinely congratulate yourself as if you did the hardest version. Because if you do this easy version, that means that you chose to do something instead of nothing. And that is the hardest point of all.